So today I picked up a hitchhiker on my way back from a real estate event for the Oakville Milton Real Estate Board, and I've done it before, but this time was a little different. Only in the sense that this particular hitchhiker was a younger guy. He was probably about 37, and we got into a conversation. It was actually quite nice because there was a cop car behind us that kind of saw the guy get in and then followed me for a little bit just to make sure everything was good to go. In either case, so we get in, this guy gets in the car, we start chit-chatting. I get him halfway to where more or less figure out where he wants to go. Wants to go to Toronto. And so we start talking, and I find out this guy has two kids. He just left his girlfriend in London, Ontario, and is trying to get back to, was it Nova Scotia but that he's actually a dad of two kids, and he hasn't seen his kids in years. Specifically, one of his kids is 17 years old, and he hasn't spoken to him. And apparently, at one point, tried to reach out to the kid through the grandparents, and they didn't want to have anything to do with him. And then he said he just gave up. Which is a BS, and I told him so. So we start talking about this, and he starts saying, "Oh, well, I didn't have a dad, and this and that." And I said, "Well, if you're making the exact same mistakes then that your dad made, and you're doing that to your own kids, so it's like you're doing it to yourself." And so we got into it, and so. Yeah, I told him that he should at least write to the kids. He's like, "Oh, well, it's too late because of this, because of that." And he came up with all sorts of excuses. So long and the short, I'm still alive. I didn't get stabbed, nothing like that. And I was able to have a very good conversation with someone who clearly needed to hear a couple things. One of which a lot of people need to hear, which is pretty much the latest thing. Like, it's never too late to do something. Like, what I told the guy was, I said, it's only too late when you're dead. Doesn't matter how much rejection or how much anger you get from your 17-year-old. This kid has gone 17 years without your guidance and without even knowing that you care about him or that you or even who you are. So how important is it for anyone's development to know that that your parent exists and is thinking about you, but also just it's kind of a part of their own identity to figure out what's going on. This guy, he was a whole bag of worms, man. He was all over the map. Two different kids, two different parents, one in Manitoba. And just broke up with his girlfriend in London. The fact that he's hitchhiking is enough said there. But certainly there's a lot of people who think me picking up a hitchhiker was a stupid move. But at the end of the day, I think we really got down to some serious things about what's going on in this guy's life and what he could be doing to be a better person. And I try to speak to people in a way where I speak to them about what's in their best interest so that they can see why doing the right thing is actually something that will make other people happy as well. And in this particular instance, I could tell this guy had been beaten down on himself so much so that he kind of was cold or shut off to the idea of even caring about anyone else because he doesn't even care about himself. And so I made it quite evident that, by reaching out to your kids now, even if you get shut down and they don't want to speak to you and they don't respond, at least you've reached out rather than just giving up and thinking, oh, they don't care anyways. This guy really got it into his head that, he tried by calling and the kid doesn't want to hear from him. But, it doesn't matter if the person on the other end is blocking you from talking to your kid. The fact that you're reaching out, that you're sending letters or emails, communicating in some capacity will have a source of and have some type of valuable byproduct because as someone who lost his dad young, my dad never had a chance to do that, and I never had a chance to connect. And then he's like, well, what if, isn't it on him to follow up with me at this point? And I'm like, dude, you're so full of shit. Your kid, you can't expect your kid to be responsible for making sure that you have a connection. Because you're a transient. You don't have a fixed address. You don't have a phone number because you don't have a cell phone. The best way to do it is through email, and then check your email periodically. So he agreed with all those things. And before I left, I ended up, because I couldn't take him all the way down to Toronto, but I did drop him off. I said I could either drop him off at a nearby intersection in Brampton, or I could drop him off at a GO station or train station. So I dropped him off at Bramley GO station, and I gave him a bunch of stuff from the golf tournament, like mints. There was a free Burger King burger. I gave him a couple of Cokes and some just other random stuff I had in the car. A notepad, Mayer-Harman team notepad. You never know, we might come back to Ontario and buy a house. No, not at all. That's what I was thinking. But in either case, it was an interesting experience, and yeah, I was kind of blown away because this guy was about 20 years old when he had his first kid, just like me, and he really fucked up. He really made some bad decisions. He has 2 different kids with 2 different parents in 2 different provinces, and he's all upset because him and his girlfriend broke up from his girlfriend in London, Ontario, a couple provinces away from where his 2 kids are. And then he's kind of at the point that I had spoken to him, he had more or less given up on his kids. So hopefully my talk with him today will result in him actually communicating with his kids so that those kids can have a chance to understand why their dad did what he did and what his dad's thinking. But by the time he ended, by the time I dropped him off, the guy had told me he wanted to start a band and he was going to write a song for his kids and he was going to make sure he got them, wrote them a nice letter. So I hope that he follows through on those things. I hope that he gives those kids a chance to really understand that it wasn't about them. It was more about him and his failings and his personal mentality, which drove him away, and it wasn't the kids' faults. Anyways, the reason I wanted to share this is because it was an interesting experience, and I guess the moral of the story is it's never too late. The only time it's too late is when you're in the ground. So if there's relationships that you've given up on, don't. Especially if they are that important to you, or if there's a level of responsibility that you owe to that other person, it's always worth it to give it a shot and face that rejection, be accountable for the actions you've made in the past, but don't let them define you into the future. So hope you enjoyed this story. It was an interesting day, so I wanted to make sure I captured it because these are the types of things you forget after the fact. And it was very interesting, again, because, the whole dad thing is kind of close to me in a variety of ways. Have a great night. Go Raptors.